Nearly 90% of the crops in the United States grow genetically modified products that could be destroying your health. People are widely unaware of how to avoid GMO foods and their potential to cause health issues. The research I have done by reviewing scholarly articles and medical journals allows me to confidently say that GMOs have the potential for negative health effects on humans and should be identified as potentially hazardous products. Food manufacturers should be required to label GMO foods so we as consumers are able to make the decision to avoid purchasing and eating these foods. Indeed, major human health concerns regarding GMO foods should be evaluated when considering the need for GMO labeling. Such issues, including allergies and toxicities, should be considered. The number one health concern with GMOs is the potential to create new allergens within our food supply. R.M. Helm, in the publication Current Allergy and Asthma Reports, explains that products from these genetically modified plants may contain novel proteins that are a potential risk for allergenicity. These allergens are difficult to predict and treat as GMOs are still so new to our food supply, and yearly evaluations of food allergies are not conducted in the United States. However, the UK is one of the few countries that does require annual evaluations of food allergies. Louis Pribble, in his biotechnology draft document in '99, an FDA internal memoranda, notes a study conducted at the York Laboratory in which scientists were surprised to discover that reactions to soy had skyrocketed by 50% in the UK over the previous year. Genetically modified soy had recently entered the UK from US imports, and the soy used in the study was largely genetically modified. This chart displays an increased number of hospital discharges due to allergic reactions to food in the years between 1998, 2 years after the first GMO seeds were planted, and 2006. There was a rapid increase of 6,922 documented allergic reactions in this time period. In addition to allergenicity, toxicity is another health concern. GMO foods have the potential to be toxic due to their chemical makeup and associated pesticides. A study published in the Journals of Reproductive Toxicology in 2011 explains that the presence of pesticides associated with genetically modified foods were found in maternal, fetal, and non-pregnant women's blood. They also found the presence of Monsanto's Bt toxin. Finally, glyphosate, the main ingredient in Roundup, the GMO pesticide, is linked to birth defects, autism, Parkinson's, breast cancer, and Alzheimer's. Each issue is demonstrated in its own searchable scientific study in journals such as Reproductive Toxicology, Pathways to Modern Medicine, and Food Chemical Toxicology. This graph specifically addresses the correlation between the use of glyphosate and autism in young people between the ages of 6 and 21. You'll note that at the time of the introduction of GMO corn and soy to our food supply, the number of people with autism was close to 10,000. Today, it is well above 350,000. The correlation between autism and corn and soy consumption is alarming. Because of associations like this with GMOs, they require much more scientific research. Hopefully, this will one day help to remove these products from our grocery shelves, but we should have a means of protecting ourselves in the meantime. The required labeling of GMO foods would allow consumers to choose to avoid purchasing and consuming potentially hazardous foods. If legislation is passed on GMO labels, all GMOs will be easily identified and avoidable. Action needs to be taken in order to get such legislation passed. Write to your local representative on GMO labeling, lobby for the cause, and vote in state elections regarding legislation on GMO labeling. GMO labeled foods would still be available to those who want to consume them, but those of us who wish to avoid the associated risks with these foods can make the decision to buy other products. Labeling GMOs is a crucial way for consumers to avoid the potential associated risks of these foods. Right now, it is nearly impossible to know which foods are GMOs and how to avoid them. With allergens and toxicity as possible side effects, it's important to be able to identify them. Legislation needs to be influenced to require labeling of GMOs, and we can take action by writing our local representatives, voting in local elections, and lobbying against GMO manufacturers. With these potentially dangerous foods conspicuously labeled, we can feed our families with foods that are naturally grown and do not have the associated risks of GMOs. Thanks.